It's after midnight in San Francisco, 1974. A quiet diner by the ocean hums under neon. Two men sit in a booth. One pulls a napkin closer, sketches quick lines, a jaw, a nose, eyes that look back. They pay, step into the cold Pacific wind, and disappear into the dark. By morning, a body will be found. The artist will have no name. People will start calling him the Doodler. San Francisco in the mid-1970s was a place of change and music and risk. Bars on certain streets felt like home if you were gay, or simply looking for a place where the night could be yours. There were diners that never closed, beaches that stretched into black water, and parks with paths that felt endless after midnight. The city was an open door for many people who had not felt welcome elsewhere. But an open door also lets in danger when someone decides to turn kindness and trust into a trap. The story people tell about the Doodler begins with simple scenes: a bar conversation, a sketch on a napkin, a small laugh at a good likeness, a walk outside where the wind smells like salt and wet wood. The nickname Doodler comes from the claim that the attacker sketched men before the violence, fast portraits that made strangers relax. It is an eerie detail because it feels friendly and intimate. Drawing a face is like saying, "I see you." In this case, it may have been a way to lower guards, to start a conversation, to move the night forward towards something planned. For a period that stretched across 1974 and 1975, bodies were found along the city's edges, near Ocean Beach, in or near Golden Gate Park and Lincoln Park, places where darkness is not just a lack of streetlight, but a thick thing that swallows sound. Victims were mostly men who were part of, or close to, the local LGBTQ+ community. The pattern that investigators saw later looked like this: a meeting at a bar or restaurant, an agreement to leave together, a walk or a drive to a quiet spot, and then a sudden attack with a knife. The scenes felt both public and hidden, close to places thousands of people visit by day, but empty and lonely at night. Law enforcement linked several killings by method and timing. They also believed there were survivors, men who had fought back and lived. Those survivors told stories that explained the nickname. They described an encounter that started with small talk, art, and charm. One detail repeats: the attacker drew. Another detail varies: exact words said, exact places, exact times. Memory is a hard tool to use when a person is attacked. Shock and fear shake the film, but pieces fit together in a way that gave investigators a shape to follow. The city's mood changed as the case grew. Some people in the community had already learned to move carefully. Harassment and violence against gay men were not rare in the 1970s, and trust in the police was complicated. Many feared being outed if they came forward, which could cost them jobs, homes, or relationships with family. That fear made witnesses quiet. It made victims less likely to report near misses. It made the attackers' work easier. If your best defense is a community that talks to each other and calls for help, stigma is not just a social problem. It is a real safety risk. Investigators did what they could with the tools of the time. They canvassed bars and restaurants. They took statements. They tracked times and places, drew lines on maps, and looked for loops that might suggest where the attacker felt most confident. They set up patrols in parks and along beaches. They collected whatever physical evidence they could at each scene: fibers, prints if any existed, impressions in soil, the angle of a wound, the distance from a path to a tree line. They compared victim profiles, looking for a pattern in age, race, job, and habits. They compared statements from survivors and bartenders and staff at late-night spots. They watched for any man sketching in public with too much focus on another man's face. The portrait detail is the center of this story, not because it is colorful, but because it may explain how the attacker closed the distance between strangers. To be drawn is to be seen. It feels like attention, even care. A sketcher and a subject lean close. They share a small table. They bend their heads over the same paper. That closeness can be the doorway to trust. And if the person asking for trust is a predator, that doorway is the start of a trap. No one can say with certainty how many attacks belong to the same hand. Most lists include at least 5 killings and note several survivors who did not want to put their names in public. Some researchers add 1 or 2 more deaths that fit the general pattern, but they label them as possible, not proven. There were peaks, weeks when fear spiked because 2 bodies were found closer together than anyone could bear. There were lulls that made people hope it was over. And there was the ever-present barrier of silence. A witness might talk to a friend, but not to a detective. A survivor might give a statement, but beg that it stay off the record. In that vacuum, rumors bloomed. Some rumors helped, most did not. Let's slow down and walk through some scenes the way a careful narrator should. With respect, with restraint, and with an eye on what is confirmed. Ocean Beach at night is a long, empty sound. The horizon is broken by nothing but the idea of Japan beyond the Earth's curve. The beach is a thin line of sand between city and ocean, and at the city edge sits a diner, a parking lot, and low buildings whose windows shine like small ships. 2 men leave a booth with a sketch folded into a pocket. They talk and laugh with the confidence of people who believe the night belongs to them. At the water's edge, wind turns speech into broken pieces. If someone cries out, the ocean has a way of stealing the end of each word. Morning light finds what the night hid. People gather. Police string tape that flaps in the breeze. A tide line cuts the sand into 2 colors. Evidence markers look like tiny tents. In a city park, the night is a different animal. Trees and paths, fog that moves in soft ropes, streetlights at a distance like stars in a fake sky. A couple walking a dog after a late shift sees something that is not right and hurries on. They argue for a block about calling it in before they do. An officer arrives and moves slowly, beam down, eyes up, until the beam and the eyes both stop on the same small space. He radios for help and keeps others away. In the days that follow, officers walk the paths in pairs. Men who usually stroll alone at 2 in the morning try to go in 2s or 3s. A park that felt like a private room suddenly feels like a hallway everyone can see into, yet no one can secure. These quiet reconstructions are not meant to dramatize. They are meant to center the real environments, the places people loved and used that became the stage for harm. When we tell the story this way, we remember the victims as people in places they chose, not props in someone else's show. As the investigation stretched on, the police circulated a composite sketch and later versions adjusted for age. They told the public the case was still open. They asked for tips. They repeated details they hoped would jog memories, the sketching, the bars and diners, the types of questions the attacker might have asked. Over time, the case file thickened. It also cooled. Detectives moved on to other assignments. The city changed. The old bars closed or became new restaurants with new names and clean glass. Docks got rebuilt. Streets got safer in some ways and more crowded in others. But this case never fully left. Officers who care about cold cases keep lists in their heads. They have folders they visit again. They talk to new recruits about the old ones, not as ghost stories, but as lessons. Here is what we look for. Here is when we need to push harder. Here is how we talk to people who are afraid to talk to us. The Doodler case sits in that mental file because it touches many themes that matter even now. How bias blocks truth, how a simple social trick can lead to harm, how a community's fear of being seen can hide a criminal in plain sight. Let's talk about that fear directly. In the mid-1970s, being gay could still be a dangerous fact to carry, even in a city known for freedom. Many people had good reasons to protect their privacy. If a survivor had to point to a man and say, "He did this," he might also have to answer personal questions in public. Where he met him, what he wanted that night, what he said, how he moved. Those questions might appear in a courtroom or in a newspaper. That risk kept some mouths closed. It also became part of the attacker's calculation. He chose targets less likely to go to police and worlds less likely to trust the protection offered. That is a second harm layered on the first. It does not just take a life or injure a body. It plays on shame and silence. In a calm narration, we should also admit what we do not know. We do not know the attacker's true name. We do not know his path through the city, except by the shadows he left. We do not know how he chose one man over another, or what exactly he said to make a conversation feel safer than it was. We do not know whether he moved away, was jailed for something else, or stopped for reasons we cannot see. There are theories about work schedules, about a car, about an apartment near a certain intersection, about a childhood that taught him to draw well. None of these are facts. They are scaffolding that people build when a wall is missing. What we do know is enough to share usefully. We know the city and the era. We know the basic pattern of meeting, leaving, and attack. We know that survivors describe sketching as a lure. We know the case was officially kept open. We know police asked for help again, years later, with updated images and renewed appeals. We know the community still remembers, not because the name Doodler is catchy, but because the loss still matters and the danger he used was not unique to the 1970s. If this story ended in a courtroom with a sentence and a name, our tone would be different. We would walk through arrest, arraignment, trial, and verdict. We would talk about evidence that survived long enough to be tested with newer tools. We would note the closure that a legal process can bring, even if it never completely repairs what was broken. Because this story does not end there, we must balance two tasks: to keep the facts clear and to let the unsolved part remain honest. The case is not a playground for invention. It is a set of lives and nights and places that deserve careful language. Let's stand for a moment inside one of the bars where the attacker may have drawn. Picture a small table near the wall, two men facing each other, a pen or pencil scratching on a cheap napkin, eyes glancing up and down. The drawing moves quickly. A line for the brow, a curve for the cheek, a suggestion of hair, a shoulder, a hint of a smile. The subject laughs because we all laugh when we see ourselves turned into paper. It is a relief, a trick, a miracle. The room holds soft music and the clink of glass. A server passes by with a tray. People talk with their heads close because the music and the hum require it. If we freeze the frame here, it is a sweet moment. If we let the frame move, it becomes something else. The attacker stands up and invites the other man to walk. The night is beautiful. The air is fresh. It feels like a beginning, not an end. That is the cruelty at the center of this case. The tool of connection, art, used for harm. When you understand that, you understand why the nickname stuck. You also understand why the community has not forgotten. The scene is too easy to imagine. Anyone could be the person who nodded, smiled, and followed. What would we do differently now? A city with more training and more trust could create routes for survivors to speak without losing privacy. Anonymous tip lines exist, but trust decides whether people use them. Police could partner with community centers so that a person who fears a uniform can talk to someone else first. Bars could post a simple sign that says, "If you leave with a stranger and want us to notice, tell us." No questions asked. We could teach small habits, share a first name and a photo with a friend, set a time to check in, ask the staff to call a ride and note the license plate, walk under lights, stay in pairs until you know what you want. None of this blames victims for not doing these things. It simply builds a stronger floor under everyone. As for the storytelling part, what we are doing right now, there is a way to tell this without feeding legend. We avoid vivid descriptions of harm. We talk about the why and the how in ways that keep dignity at the center. We use the attacker's nickname because it is how the case is known, but we do not turn him into a clever ghost. We do not list names of people who were suspected unless there is a public record that uses those names with care, and even then we say unproven. We keep the focus on the victim's humanity and the community's challenge. There is one more image to carry as we close. A sheet of paper with a face drawn on it, left behind on a table. No one knows who that face belongs to now. The lines are good, quick, skilled, alive. A busboy could toss it away without looking. Or he could pause for a second and feel a small chill for no reason he can explain. That piece of paper is the case in miniature. An image made fast, attention that felt kind, and a person who is not there anymore to claim the moment as their own. In a perfect world, someone watching this would remember a detail from long ago. A diner name, a sketch pinned to a corkboard, a person who liked to draw in bars on a certain street, a car that waited in a certain lot most nights, and call it in. Maybe that detail is small, but cases turn on small things all the time. Until then, the most honest ending is a door not yet closed. The city that held these nights is still here. The ocean still makes its long sound. People still sit in booths and laugh at quick drawings. And we keep telling the story as clearly as we can, because clarity is a kind of respect. If you walk Ocean Beach at midnight now, the wind will do what it has always done. It will pull your coat tight and move sand in thin sheets, and it will carry city sounds down to the water and bring the water's hush back to the city. You will see couples and friends and maybe someone alone. You will also see more light, more phones, more ways to connect. That does not erase risk. Nothing does. But it gives us more tools than the people in 1974 had. What we do with those tools, how we watch out for each other, how we listen when someone says something is wrong, how we respond when a person fears being seen, will decide which stories stop and which stories continue. The Doodler is an unsolved case. That is the fact that bothers the mind and the heart. But unsolved does not mean unknowable. It means we say, "I don't know yet," instead of inventing. It means we respect survivors by taking their words seriously without forcing them to carry the whole burden. It means we hold space for new information. It means we focus on the living lessons, that predators can wear charm like a coat, that a drawing can be more than a drawing, that silence can be a tool used against us, and that communities get safer when speaking is less dangerous than keeping quiet. This has been a calm walk through a hard set of nights. If you came here for answers, I can only give you careful ones. If you came here for a name, I cannot give that. If you came here to understand, I hope you now see the shape of things. A city at the edge of the ocean, a community facing both freedom and fear, a person who turned a small art into a larger harm, and a file that waits for a detail that might still arrive. If this story helped you see the Doodler case more clearly, please like the video, subscribe for weekly fact-first true crime, and comment below. I'm curious, do you think the sketching detail was the attacker's main lure, or just a memorable coincidence from a few encounters? Why?